What are your questions? Save maybe for the nuts. That's what you're looking for. You brought me here, Muga, to pity you.
Check the time. It is 18 minutes after the hour, 2 o'clock. It is the 11th of July. Pukwe, atola malatsi alele some lebongwe. Welcome to the Ink in Think podcast with Sir Gift. Now, Woli Soyinka once said that the tiger does not proclaim its tigertude. It pounces. Those very words epitomizes my guest today, who is Masai Sepuru, who's going to be joining us for the second time. You know why? Because I love him so much and because he's so great. He's a theater maker, he's a designer, he's a painter, he's a musician, he's a poet. He's literally everything that you grew up wanting to be. Masai, thank you so much for joining us for the second time.
Thank you for having me again. It's
Yeah.
nice to be back.
How do you feel?
Good, man. I feel good. I feel all right. How do you feel?
I am great, man. I was actually telling you the last time we shot our first episode, I was so happy and so excited, but at the same time I was overwhelmed. Obviously, not only by your presence, but by that thing, something might go off. I don't know. Do you get that sometimes? Let's say you have organized an exhibition or a show, and then you just like something is gonna go wrong. I don't know what, where.
I don't know, man. You do the best you can, and then you just put it out there. And like I think that it depends what you value. I think I value the product being created and the effort that went into it, and everything else is extra. You know what I mean? So other people watch, or people come, or people buy. That's extra, but the process from conceptualizing to research to creating and then execution, that's beautiful. That's what I value more, and then I appreciate and obviously love the support, but that comes first. And if I get to that point, if a person comes, if 2 people come, if 5, if it's a full house, you know what I mean, we're
sense.
grateful, we're very grateful, but they need to come see something.
Yeah. Speaking of a product, we are here today, by the way, to talk about the tragedy of Samuel Omunye. I think one of the things that I did the last time was actually to give you a props as a poet, and then I also mentioned the fact that I could see a lot of poetry in your work. But then when I got home, I was like, I didn't actually give Masai his props as a writer and a director and a maker of theater, because I think that you are dope in that regard. So can you talk a little bit about the tragedy of Samuel Omunye? How did it come about? What story are we telling in there? What story is there?
The Tragedy of Samuel Omunye is a play that I wrote maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it has grown and developed from season to season, theater to theater, and it is where it is right now. I don't know what more to say about it. It's just a play that I wrote. It's a 2-hander. It explores African stories, African reality of what's going on right now, what happened before, right now. I would need specific questions to answer, but it's a play.
I do have a lot of those. But one of the things that you mentioned, I think what something that is at the center of the tragedy of Samuel Omunye is the idea of balanced conversation that you spoke about.
Yes.
There is a show that I once saw some years ago, it actually, when I watch the tragedy of Samuel Omunye, I get the same feeling. Those are the kind of shows that I would like literally watch every day.
All right.
It was called The Meeting. It's written, I'm not sure what it's written by who, but it's an American author. Here in South Africa, it was directed by James Ngobo.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a conversation between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Yes.
So it's like this idea of what would have happened if they had a conversation, you know?
Yes.
So what we see on the stage, we see these two gentlemen having a conversation.
Yes.
And then it's almost the same thing with the tragedy of Samuel Omunye, because I was like, one moment I find it actually consists of two characters, Professor Samuel Omunye, General Muga. Yeah. And every time when they speak, for one moment, I'm like, okay, I'm with Samuel with this one.
Yeah.
And then it's like watching a cross-examination, and then General is going to be like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, actually, I think I'm with the General. And at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, there's so much nuance. Can you talk about that, the idea of balanced conversations in this piece? What was it that you were trying to achieve?
Balance, yes, but most importantly, as like you were saying now, is nuance. I think people think that, you know, the stories or the situations that specifically, I suppose in this case, talking about Africa and black people and history of colonial history, they think the solution is like black and white, you know. I think there's a lot of nuance that people ignore by just like, you know, going straight to the black and white. I think there's a lot of gray areas that need to be explored, and that's what I'm trying to do, is just to spark these conversations of really honestly having them without not without, but, you know, having them logically and also, you know, including the emotions, you know what I mean, balancing those two out. It's very important to view these matters and to engage with them on an emotional level, but also on an intellectual level, you know, and not only be driven by emotion. And I think that's why the separation between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King is they both wanted, you know, good for their people, but the approach was different, and the difference was, you know, the difference was that without close inspection, it seems like it's black and white. But the closer you get to the topic itself, there's a lot of gray and nuanced. And yeah, so that's what I like to explore in my stories, in my poetry. I try to inspire conversations and have people engage, and, you know, that's why it's very difficult to pick a side with the tragedy of Samuel Omunye. And even when you leave and you have conversations with the people that watched, you know, other people take this side and the other people take the other side. It's a very, and again, it's nothing, no one is wrong, no one is right, you know. But that was the difficult thing about writing the tragedy of Samuel Omunye, is that most stories have like a protagonist and antagonist, you know. They have the hero and they have the villain. You know, how do you write a story when neither of those exist and they exist at the same time, you know? And also, how do you make it a story? It's very important that it's still it's not a podcast. It's not like me and you talking right now. It's still a story. There's act 1, act 2, act 3, progression, plot, you know, suspense, reveal, you know, danger. All of this needs to be included in the story. And how do you achieve that when you are only exploring the gray areas? Stories, good stories exist in the extreme. You know what I mean? But when you are putting them in closer together, it becomes almost the same character. You know, Muga could simply be Samuel. Samuel could be Muga. You know? I don't know if they themselves sometimes believe the things they say. You know what I mean? Specifically, like maybe Muga. He say things to poke Samuel. You know what I mean? And to see how far he holds those beliefs. This makes sense to you if you watch the show. But yeah.
But I'm pretty sure very soon we're going to have it released as a text.
Yes.
People are going to be able to.
Yes,
it's
in that space. Soon as it's going to be released as text.
Yeah. obviously, okay, where is this place at? Because they speak a little bit of French. You can tell obviously
Yes.
it's here in Africa. There's a sort of resemblance to their history with ours, but it's not in South Africa.
Yes. I think it's the country of Niamba, which is the hometown of Samuel and or the home country of Samuel and Muga. It's a fictional country. It's a made-up country. I did that also for the reason that I want the viewers to enjoy the story, right? And without, you know, feeling attacked. You know what I mean? And feeling like I've picked a side. So I chose a country that, you know, no one can claim to be from. I chose a language that, you know, is different from my audience in Southern Africa. And the French, which was also like, there's another thing that people forget that depending on where you're from and which part of the country, continent you're from, rather, you sort forget that other parts of the continent was invaded or colonized by different other countries. Like Mozambique is Portuguese, South Africa is Dutch and English. When you go further up into the east, it's more French.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you go further up to the north, it's more Arabic, you know, and then there's German, you know. So I'm trying to also like make people aware that, you know, the story isn't as simple as just like, you know, we got colonized by these people and this is how we solve our problem.
Yeah, there's something that you explored very nicely there that I'm not sure if probably I interpreted it the way that you intended it for it to be. The country was invaded by a certain group of people.
Yes.
But yet at the same time, there's a group of other people who are
Yes.
colonizers in other countries. But in this particular country,
Yeah.
they took these children to school.
Yes.
So it's sort of like we have in our minds, usually we have the colonizers with not with white faces, but as this one particular face, not realizing what actually.
I mean,
so
there
many
was a war
countries-
in the South Africa between the Dutch and the English
Yeah.
in South Africa. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it went on for years, and we don't talk about it. But the white people fought each other here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For whatever reason, and also they had different intentions, and you know the things that they want to do with the countries that they colonized. One wanted to like extract the minerals and take it home. The other wanted to build, and then they fought. You know. And other countries felt like so there was it's not simple, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Especially South Africa, like there was a lot of contest about the colonization of South Africa, because first there was the Portuguese, and then there was the Dutch, and then there were the English, you know what I mean, and it just kept going and going and going. But if you only view it as like white people colonized Africa, you will miss out on a lot of detail. So that's what I explored as well. And also, I explored the colonization in terms of like religion as well. Because if you remember in the story, Samuel went to a monastery, a church. You know what I mean? That's where his life changed, because it was like, taken in by... what do you call them? Missionaries. It was taken by missionaries, and then he went to school, and then but then those missionaries happened also in the country that was French. You know what I mean? And that's a common story that happens in most African countries. So that's probably the reason why there's still civil wars in Africa, is because like it's like one country has served different masters. You know what I mean? And that's why you have like these countries where you wonder who's sponsoring them and why are they fighting. Someone else is doing the sponsoring. If it's not the Americans, it's giving them, and then the French are also giving them the weapons, and then the Russians. So it's a mess. You know what I mean? So those are the nuances that I wanted to interrogate and expose by showing that Samuel was taken in by a different colonizer.
Yeah.
And also how the mentality of a colonizer, or the colonizers, was different, and their intention, going back to the intention, what did they want to do with the country? You know what I mean? And how vicious, the others were, and is it Congo where they had, like, they cut the hands of the miners if they found that they stole something or did not reach a specific, quota. And I forget the country. Is it Belgium? Yeah. So nobody talks about the Belgium.
Yeah.
Because we know about the English and the Dutch because that's our experience. But people in the Congo, they know about the French and the Belgium.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people maybe in Mali know about the Germans and the French. And people in Mozambique know about the English and the Portuguese. So again, looking at that, really, I think the difficulty about decolonization is because of that's one of the reasons. Is because there's so much to unpack. And also to add on top of that is that one thing that I always say is that Africans are people and they have their own histories as well, their own interactions. And to simply saying the white people colonized black people is it's an oversimplification of what happened, because there were many tribes that either fought each other just because people fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there's a lot. It's not white people colonized black people. It's Europe colonized Africa.
Yeah.
So then now we're in conversation now you're really looking into like nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a friend of mine or a cousin of mine was actually reminding me of the slave trade that happened.
Yeah.
I think it was Arabic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Arabic Strip is still happening.
Yeah, that is super sad. But then you see it and then you look at Africa and you just wonder the things that we actually go through or the things that we've actually went through. I think we are not given enough props as people, because I think that as African people, we are resilient, man. We keep on dying, we keep on coming back. A lot of people are accusing us of being too soft and being too kind, but I think that we're powerful. I want us to talk about something, going back to that idea of a balanced conversation, and also the fact that the story is obviously set up in a different country, a fictional country.
A fictional country.
Yeah. When I was looking at the story, just to paint it a little bit, you remember back in the days when they were actually trying to fight apartheid. Yeah, we had people who actually thought a way of ending this would actually to use weapons. And then the other people who were like, you know what, we see the bigger picture here. Why don't we go through the negotiation route or route? This is a sense that I was getting from the characters. But at the same time, maybe you can also talk about this. General Muga is somebody that I think I don't want to say white people, because if I say white people are gonna think that I'm talking about them, but I'm talking about the system. I think that one of their biggest fear after apartheid, after slavery in the United States of America, was that we are going to become like General Muga fighting them, which is very justified.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's right, but I'm saying that he's justified. That at some point they are scared and vilifying us. You can look at the way they're killing black people, saying we are criminals. But you're like, you guys enslaved us. You guys were killing us, and now there's a narrative that is being pushed that we are warlords. We are killers, we are criminals, we are all of these things that you actually perpetuated on us. Number two, when I look at the character of Samuel Omunye, I'm gonna later talk about his arrogance. But I think he is a prototype of what people want us to be, the Rainbow Nation. In order for us to fit into this Rainbow Nation, we have to like be peaceful. We have to, not question things and just like fight things by the paper. Can we talk about the creation of those characters? But can we also talk about the history of South Africa in terms of being negotiators and also the armed struggle?
I think going back to that nuance thing I was talking about. It's you can't avoid it. You can't effectively have a conversation without really interrogating what is the meat of this thing. You know what I mean? Because it's so easy for people to want to pick up arms.
Aside.
And, you know, but also like we did pick up arms
Yeah.
at some point briefly between the early 90s and the late 80s, but we picked up arms against each other. You know what I mean? There was a lot of almost like a civil war thing happened in the
We have 10 minutes. Okay.
in the hostels, and you know who's gonna take power, the PAC, the ANC. It's very difficult to just. I don't want. My fear is to like treat black people as abstract concepts. Black people are people capable of a lot of things, capable of horrendous things, capable of murder, capable of being warlords, capable. And on the same breath, they are very good people. You know what I mean? They are capable of peace, capable of participating in global politics and having great impact. Like character like Samuel Omunye, as much as there's this arrogance around him, but you cannot take away his importance. To have an African astrophysicist who is participating in maybe what's happening and what we should do. You know, let's say for instance there is an asteroid heading to Earth and there's decisions to be made. What are we supposed to do with that? We need minds like that because we need someone at the table to say, well, you know, we can either do this or do that. But if we let the rest of the world decide for us, then, you know, characters like or people like Samuel lose that importance. You know what I mean? But we need people of that intelligence. So it's unfair. And it's unfair and it's fair at the same time to critique on their characters. But I suppose as much as Africa is made up of many parts, people are made up of many parts, and we are capable of of many things. And another thing to really consider is that one thing that I look at in when I was writing The Tragedy of Samuel Omunye is the evolution of humans, but not on a biological level, but on a societal level, on a civilization level. And what does that mean for Africa in the next 10 years? Because we cannot deny that there's a globalization, there's a trade, there is conversations that I had about the future of the globe and what is our participation in that. You know what I mean? And also how do we then not necessarily negotiate, but how do we deal with what happened to us? Some people might say, okay, let's just close out the world and then let's deal with what we have right now. But whilst you're doing that, the world is moving on. I say this to say it's not an easy thing. And it helps to admit that at first, and then you can move on. You know what I mean? And that's the essence of The Tragedy of Samuel Omunye, is to encourage conversations that aims to move us forward, right? I know in the play itself, I deal with extremes and things that are not people don't necessarily talk about on pedestrian conversations, but the aim there is just to inspire conversations. Like now, as an example, when you talk about the movement of foreigners and illegal foreigners, people think if they just go home, it's fine. Or if we just close the borders, it's going to be fine. And some people think if we just open the borders, then it's going to be fine. It's not that simple. It's really not that simple. And it helps to start there. It helps to think that the conversation or the topic that you're discussing, it's not that simple just to brush over and thinking that that's it. You know what I mean? If we pick up arms, because if we pick up arms and they retaliate, that's what Samuel says, they have bigger guns. You know what I mean? And someone says we will lose, we would win, but at what cost? You know what I mean? It's very important to sit first with the thing, think about it, have conversations about it. And we were heading somewhere in South Africa. with the negotiations themselves, but the negotiations and the arms were both necessary. You know what I mean? We were heading somewhere, and also like we got to the negotiations because we decided to pick up arms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, these people are ready, and they're like, okay, maybe we should talk. You see, like the arms were important, but also to not overly intellect the thing. You know what I mean? To like to intellectualize it and only exist in boardrooms, because real people they don't care for those conversations. They just want to see change. You know what I mean? And it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
It has to be a balancing act. You know. Yeah.
Gray area.
It's a great area, man.
Yeah.
It's great areas.
Can you also talk about the fact that there is a lot of, in Samuel, as I said, I see a lot of arrogance actually. Maybe you can also talk about what actually happens in the show. I want us to talk about the idea of holding on to ideas and isms, your hard determinism. Somebody's just going to be like, I am dying for my thoughts, whether they make sense or not. You actually said, you don't even think what these people believe what they are saying because of the conversation that are happening between General Muga and Samuel, a conversation that usually takes place in your own head. You are one entity, but these conversations are ongoing in your head. You like left, right, or center. I was actually also talking about two biblical stories. You have a story of Peter. Peter momentarily saves his life by denying Christ. He's like, I don't know the man, you know. But later, that moment played a vital role in a way that he went on to be like the best of the people in that journey of Christianity. And then you have a man like Job that we were talking about. Here he is dying, having to curse God. They're like, bro, this idea of yours is not working. Can you like suspend it momentarily? And our pride in our isms, we like, there's no way, I have to like die for this thing, whether I believe it to be true or not. Actually, to some degree, I don't even think it's about the thing. It's about the belief. I think it's about the arrogance. I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be wrong with this hard determinism. I don't want to be wrong with the soft determinism. I don't want to be wrong with the school of thought. I am going to die for it. You're like, but they show you, okay, there are some loopholes. You're like, no, can we talk about that?
Death. I think, I know it's a very weird way to start the sentence.
Yeah.
But death. I think now, as you're speaking about Samuel and his arrogance, I don't think it's so much arrogance as much as it is fear of dying. And there's death over the physical of the body, but there's the death of the intellectual. When you've spent your entire life building this character, and then you've nurtured it, and it has grown, it has effectively become you, and someone is asking you to kill yourself. That's what is happening. That's why he's holding on to it, because Muga is effectively asking him just die. You know what I mean? Just also like I liking to the Peter story.
Yeah,
you'd think denying Christ is like dying. You know what I mean? Like, because you say, I don't know this man. That's and also finding Christ is finding life. So it's not so much arrogance, so much as it's fear. He's afraid to die, because once he says he denounces his beliefs, what remains? You know what I mean? He becomes a husk. You know, he doesn't really, it's just a body. But everything that he has built is dead. So he doesn't want to die intellectually. You know what I mean? He's holding on to things because he have to. You know what I mean? Because if he lets go, he's floating in midair and he does not know how far the plummet is. So it is arrogance, because he worked hard to attain it. You know what I mean? Many years went into study, especially if it's science. If you speak to scientists, they are very interested in the objective truth.
Yeah.
You know
let me say this.
Yeah.
Samuel is with Muga.
Yeah.
His family is about to die. He's told that deny hard determinism for a moment. You're gonna save your family. Yeah. So I agree with you of it being fear, but I think that's okay. I don't know.
Also, these are old men in the story. They are very old, and this means the belief that they've held for a very long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yes, again, there's this sense of arrogance and there's also the sense of fear of what that means for them.
Okay.
And
Can you cut a little? All right. I think probably because of we are towards the end of the conversation because
Yeah.
of time. I want us to talk about something beautiful. You know, the usage of humor in this very, very dark story,
Yeah.
and also the fact that you made this Professor Muga, who's like, you know, a warlord, very relatable, and also that thing, yeah, sugar. It was like. We loved it when Professor Atela Sukirite ate. And I told you what I know what this is probably Siamonga's idea because he has like a sweet tooth.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But also in closing, Khape, we can also talk about what was it like for you working with the Siambonga Mtubegi and also with the James Tole, you know, the collaboration and all of that.
Yes, but do you believe it?
It's not about belief, it's about
You
evidence.
as Samuel Omunye, you know we joined resistance. Thomas was our leader. We sent him to go spy for us, but he too was captured and he became their spy. And the man thought to himself, maybe if I raise my child now, far from the influence of the outside world, maybe.
I stand firmly by my research that yes, indeed, the universe is governed by hard determinism.
So everything is linked to some type of causality. Are we talking about fate? Yes, Samuel.
It's Professor Omunye to you, and yes, if you want to put it that way, we are talking about fate.
It
Muga.
is General Muga to you.
Touche.
Today, that rat of a sellout president, Thomas Leroux, is giving a speech.
Who doesn't know the story, Muga? It's an old folk tale. Are you asking me if the boy was meant to bend the village?
I'm asking you if there was anything the father could have done to prevent all this.
Not madness.
I'll start with that one. I think it's very important that the people that I work with, there's an understanding that we're creating something together. And I have the privilege of having to work with some Siambonga Mtubegi and James Sitole, and they're very willing. They're very open-minded and they suggest things, you know. But also what I like about that is that they humanize the characters. And then Siambonga really humanized Muga, you know. But with the, you know, idiosyncrasies that he had and, you know, the way he moves his body, the way he uses his voice, he used that and we take advantage of that because when I write it, the character is also, again, dealing with the extreme. On the humor, I think, again, human, you know what I mean? You need to find a way for people to digest, to make it palatable, and people to like, okay, cool. And so to not alienate people, to not alienate your audience, you know, you draw them in, you know, and they feel comfortable, and then you drop the bomb, like literally, you drop the bomb, and then that's why we, you know, that, and working with James and Siambonga, it's. And everybody else that is involved, Ezra Silulu, Rapadu on costume. It's a community, you know what I mean? Because we also see the importance of this thing that we're creating. It's a community, and we create it together. I think the directing part of it is just pretty much like a title that we put there for fancy stuff. But when we're in the creating space, everybody has like a say. Obviously there's a direction that, you know, the director decides, but everybody has a say and everybody sort of understands what is it that we're trying to achieve. Yeah,
that's nice. The next interview that we're probably going to be doing, we're probably going to be talking about you as a painter. Yeah, but I want us to talk about your t-shirts. Those beautiful t-shirts. Is it Be Kind to?
Be kind to this art.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just have just a range of t-shirts that we are you could order if you slide in my DMs. You know what I mean? And they're mostly like very private. You know, they're privately owned by people and handmade. I mean, we create them by hand, and it's just part of like an art collecting thing. It's not so much like a public thing that you own. It's very private. It's very niche. And yeah, just get into my DMs. And
what does it mean, be kind to this art? What does it mean to you?
It's also recognizing that, you know, if you believe in the divine, if you believe in creation, that you yourself are some type of an art piece. You know what I mean? And as much as there's this delicacy when, especially when an art piece is expensive, there's this way of carrying it. Don't touch, don't whatever. I think you also deserve that type of sensitivity. Also, you deserve that type of you deserve that type of interrogation. When you look at an art piece, you just wonder, what does it mean? Why did he use this? What is it? Similar with people, you know what I mean? It's made up of many parts. And to fully enjoy or to fully comprehend, you need to humble yourself and be a level of kindness. You know what I mean? And deal with it in that aspect. But yeah, man, they're very private. It's very hard to get. I won't lie. It's a very difficult thing to get because we create them when inspiration comes, and yeah. But thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Masai, thank you so much for coming, man.
Yeah.
And I love the work that you do for the arts.
Thank you for having me. I like being an artist. I enjoy it, and I'm very grateful for the people that support the work and the people that come watch the shows, talk about the shows, share the show, and yeah, I'm very grateful to have a community of people that care about the things that we make, and we hope to grow that community and have more audience members and more new art collectors and people to listen to the music and the poetry and
you've had a great time as I did, because I enjoyed having a conversation with Masai. I think for you to understand the beauty of this man, you'd have to consume his art. From me, Nakabelo Segift Kang, this is the Ink and Think podcast. Peace.